You are.
Luyanda Peter.
We see we've done it different this time. And I am.
Sasha.
Sasha Dorishka. That's right. And twice a week, we talk about 5 topics. We try and keep stuff topical, as in what's going on. Our rules are simple. Please tell me our rules.
So I mean, we basically have 5 topics, and each topic we've got 5 minutes for each topic. And at the end of the 5 minutes, we've got a bell so that
High tech.
we can stop each other, and we move on to the next topic.
Brilliant. And how we know each other is we were at school together. My last year of junior school, we were in the same little hostel. I think there were 35 or 36 boys. We've played rugby and cricket and tennis together. We probably have the most legendary schoolboy tennis photo, but we'll get to that at some point in the future. So our little logo that we've managed to generate from Grok says Chewing the Cud since 1988. And our show is called Mr. Peter.
Chatter from Cows Corner.
And why Cow Corner? If you don't know cricket,
I don't know, dude. You tell me. I just think it sounds great with the 3 C's.
because normally if you hit the ball towards Cow Corner, which is between mid-wicket and long on, that's a wild hack across the line. So it more represents a view from the couch potatoes, even though we're not. We're still active and we still do our best. Let's get into our 5 topics. We've got the ongoing Cricket Women's World Cup, where we're getting into the meaty end. There's the Rugby Autumn Series. So those are the North versus South, when the North go to, where the North, the receivers, hosts all the Southern touring nations. And then another one, Mr. Peter, 3 and 4, please come back to me.
Yeah, so Springbok Rugby, Schoolboy Rugby as a breeding ground for South African rugby, gambling, sponsorship in sport, and then of course our favorite is the Fast Five facts. So which would be good.
Without further ado, let's get into our first topic, the Women's Cricket World Cup, and we are starting now. Away you go, Mr. Peter.
Well, I mean, we're in the semis. The Protea ladies are in the semis. We're up against England. So it's going to be a tricky one for us. And in this tournament, we've been quite strange. We've been quite a strange team, right? We've done very well. We had that run of like 5 or 6 games unbeaten. But did you know that we've got the 2 lowest scores in the tournament?
Yeah, I suppose that's history now. I mean, I was just having a look at the head-to-head record with us against Australia. We've beaten them once in 19 attempts, but England, we've beaten them 10 times out of 47 and more recently, if you know what I mean. So I suppose if of the 2 sides, if you'd say who you'd rather be playing, you would much rather be South Africa playing England, even though we got bowled out for 69, than South Africa playing Australia in the other semi. So statistically, it looks like we've got a better chance. I mean, quite interestingly, I saw, England are already celebrating a World Cup win, like the English press and all their supporters are so good at. We're playing mid-morning South African time in a northeastern city called Guwahati, and we have played there before because we were bowled out for 69 against England. So maybe it's revenge time.
Yeah, I'm hoping so. I'm hoping that we use we use this past weekend's loss to Australia as a motivator, because remember the game against England, it was our first game of the tournament. We were bowled out for 69, and then we just went on that incredible run.
Yeah.
And I still say probably the best game, probably the best all-round game we played in this tournament was probably our next game, which was New Zealand.
Yeah.
So, first game we get bowled out for 69. Next game we have an absolute full all-round performance. So hopefully this is one of those times.
So your heart says there's a chance. Statistically, there's a chance. There's a 1 in 5 chance statistically. Weather-wise, it looks like a hot, steamy day there. Rain is said to stay away, so I guess that's a good thing. Maybe with the proximity to Bhutan, which I think is the only country in the world which has a Ministry of Happiness, maybe we can see something along the happiness lines for the SA Proteas women. I must say, I've never seen a team from South Africa more professional and no weak link. I think you would go in the past and you would say, oh, we don't bat too deep. Oh, we don't have 5 mainline bowlers. The top order is not contributing as many runs as they should. I think all of those boxes have been ticked. I think what's quite nice about this is if you go back 2 World Cups, there was never a guaranteed chance of a semi-final place. Now we look on paper and we say, we ended 3rd on the log, and there's a chance because it's playoff times. But is South African women's cricket's trajectory on the right path with a good balance of a lot of experience? And then there's a lot of experience in youth too, as well as some good young players.
I mean, we've got, as you said, a mix of the old and the young, but just batting, bowling, all-rounder fielders, we've got a much more balanced team. We've got the top order, the Laura, Brits, Sunay, that can score the runs, and we will need them for this game. We will need them to, to go in, get settled, and at least 2 of them to go out and score the big runs. Then, on the bowling side, we've obviously got Marizan, whose pace is needed, even though it's subcontinental conditions. Mlaba has been great. I mean, we've spoken about her ad nauseum. And then my favorite player, Nadine de Klerk, who's going to come in as the all-rounder.
Yeah.
And, I mean, she has the highest average, or is it the highest?
High strike rate.
Strike rate in this tournament. So we for this game, we basically need everyone to come to the party. And I hope we do, and I hope they do.
My heart says yes. My head says maybe.
I think we can pull it off. Knockout games.
On to our very next topic, Mr. Peter. The clock has started. It's the autumn series. Now it's called autumn, obviously, because the leaves start falling here. If you're in the US, it's called fall. There are only 4 games this weekend because it's actually outside of the time that World Rugby allows the clubs to release their players. So the Japanese have been friendly enough and have released all the South African players, but that's obvious because South Africa is playing Japan.
No, of course, that makes sense.
It's only for the 4th time in history that they're playing Japan. And it's only the 4th time ever that there's a rugby game at the home of English football at Wembley. Yeah, I've got a whole bunch of statistics for this game, and we can talk a little bit later about the rankings. But what is the chances of Japan doing a World Cup-like upsets against the Springboks? If 1 out of 100.
Very low. I would put it below 10%. I think when they beat us, it was 2015, right?
At the World Cup,
World Cup in 2015, we were going through a bad patch. We had a coach who wasn't that good. Let's be honest. So I think now, we have a settled team. We're gonna blow them out the water. Maybe not a big score, but we'll win. I don't see a chance of them winning this one.
Yeah, it's quite interesting if you have a look at them from an experience point of view. They only have 1 player with more than 50 test matches. So, inexperience. Eddie Jones loves to have a good chat, knows the Springbok setup pretty well himself, Eddie Jones. In terms of the ranking stakes, they're outside of the top 10. I think we played Japan, who are one ahead of Wales, so 12 and 13 in terms of the rankings. Just to have a look at the rankings specifically, I send you a complicated thing about how the rankings work. So currently we're top of the rankings at 92.2 points. New Zealand are second with 90. Ireland 89.83. And those two play each other in Chicago at Soldier Field, which looks like it's quite close to the water. I've never been to Chicago. I don't know about you.
Yeah.
And what is it about two of these four games taking place at neutral grounds?
Well, it is about growing the game, and having the All Blacks in the US is, for me, a good thing for World Rugby to kind of grow the game. South Africa has played in the US as well in the past. So it is, I mean, I think for me, from a commercial point of view, it makes sense. I guess if you're an Irish fan, you'll feel hard done by because it's supposedly your home game.
Yeah.
Right. So you get so you get to miss watching the All Blacks live. But we are in the professional era. The unions do need the money, and
Yes.
what a better place for a commercial point of view than the US.
Isn't it quite a traditionally people of Irish descent area too? I mean, the basketball team is called the Celtics, so that's kind of casts its origins back to sort of Ireland and Scotland and that sort of area. I was just having a look specifically at ticket prices for this, and you were talking about commercial ventures. The most expensive resale ticket on Ticketmaster is $2,350. That's a guaranteed single ticket in a good watching place. I mean, that's a pretty hefty price to play for a once-off match. A little bit lower down, $178. What's that? 3,000 Rand for a less. That's behind the polls. But it's quite interesting. I was having a look at the ticket pricing across the England series, and it depends who they play as to what the different ticket price is. Is that the same in South Africa? So in other words, if South Africa plays Georgia in Bloemfontein, is it cheaper than South Africa playing the All Blacks at Ellis Park?
100%.
Okay.
Even this year, we saw it. I mean, there was a big outcry this year where for the Australia games, the ticket prices were crazy. But you know what? The fans still bought them. The fans still went to the game. I was at the Cape Town game, and it was a sellout crowd. But there were tickets being sold for 4,000 Rand. So yeah, the fans will still go. They'll find the value.
Time starts now for our next topic, Mr. Peter, and that is betting in sport and sports sponsorships of teams specifically. So I had a look back, and the Guardian had an article on teams having some sort of logo from a betting sponsor all across Europe. So it's a global phenomenon. And 296 of 442 teams in Europe had at least one betting partner on them. So that's a number close to 2/3. But here's the thing, the first one actually only came in 2002, 2003 series, when Fulham actually had the first sponsor on the main shirt. That was Betfair. Now in South African cricket and rugby and football, traditionally it's been breweries who've sponsored that.
Well, actually, I did a bit of background research. So it looks like this thing goes in kind of waves. So in the 80s, we had tobacco advertising. That was very dominant. So we had the JPS knockouts in soccer, the Rothmans Cup in soccer. One of the longest running sponsorships was the Rothmans Durban July. And then, of course, me and you enjoyed a few Benson and Hedges cricket games. and then in the 90s, the mobile networks came on. When tobacco advertising in South Africa started getting, squeezed out. So mobile networks came in. And then in the 2010s, it was the financial services. Absa all of a sudden started sponsoring the Springboks, Bafana, Standard Bank was sponsoring the Proteas. And then now in the 2020s, the betting companies have come on, and they've come on heavy. So I do think it goes in waves. It's a betting company's time now.
Well, I did see that in the 2026-27 season in the Barclays Premier League, there's no more front of shirt sponsorships from betting companies allowed. So they can be on the side where I suppose they're, inverted commas, less visible. That's just a 25-year shift, because at the end of the day, if you agree with free markets, you should say, well, anyone should be able to sponsor, and it's just the highest price someone is willing to pay. I mean, take Newcastle United.
The thing though, right? It's also about what does that do to society. So in South African point of view, in South African context, it's a betting has become a pretty negative thing. I mean, there was an article last week about a kid at university who uses his university funds to bet. He's kind of addicted to gambling. So, yes, it's a free market, but does it make it right?
Yeah, I guess, my dad's rule of thumb is if it hurts somebody, then it's probably no good. So as you quite rightfully point out, the house always wins. So humans will always gravitate towards the easiest money-making scheme. I also had looked from a historical context. In 3000 BC in Mesopotamia, one of the earliest known civilizations, they found a 6-sided dice. So humans have been betting since time gone by.
Yeah. I mean, look at what happened in the NBA just last week, right? 3 NBA current and former players have been nailed in a betting scandal.
Yeah.
And then you say, oh, okay, why? Well, that's because so many teams have a betting partner in the US. So what do you expect? Now, I was talking about the South African example was more the consumers, right, who watch and see all this betting advertising on their favorite teams and sporting events, etc., and they get hooked. But now, when it's going down to the players, what does that mean? Is that because of the betting that the betting advertisers that they're seeing basically everywhere?
Yeah, I think nowadays, with anyone with a smartphone and a credit card attached to that smartphone, you'd have the ability to bet on an infinite number of things. But betting in sport is not new. The biggest disgrace in South African cricket, Hansie Cronje, having taken money in a terrible leather jacket from a bookmaker in India. But if your best guess, when do you think regulation will come, like in the Barclays Premier, like in the Premier League in the UK?
I can tell you now, in the South African context, there are moves to limit it, and the latest one is to say influencers or sports stars cannot be in advertising around betting. So it's coming. It's coming. Cool.
Next one, and you are wearing our old school rugby jersey. I can tell you from where I looked on the rankings tables, we were 44th overall, which might sound bad, but in terms of where it sits with private schools, I did a quick count through the top 50, and there are only 6 private schools in the top 50 in rugby rankings. So these are actually follow quite closely the global rankings in terms of how you win and lose points. So if you're playing like for like, for instance, it takes into account the players, etc. And then it only the schools with ratings over 90, like actually in World Rugby, it's pretty similar. But why do the same schools sit top of the pile year after year after year?
Yeah, I think for me it's obvious, right? You've got schools that take rugby seriously. There was an article earlier this year around, I think it was Maritzburg has got something like 40. They can put together 40 rugby teams on a Saturday, right? And then you've got schools like Pretoria Boys High with 35 teams, etc. So school rugby in South Africa is very strong because of our depth, right? Of course, you've got you've got the ranking with the top 10 schools, and those are going to be good. They're going to beat everyone. But for me, it's about the fact that a school ranked 200th can have a Springbok,
Yeah.
right? And that is, for me, where the strength of SA Rugby comes from, is our depth, not rather than the top 10 or top 20 schools.
Okay. Here's a little piece of history for you. When we used to go into the main admin building at school, there was a famous test match between the Springboks and the All Blacks in the 1930s, where there were actually 3 old boys from our school who played in that team and scored every single point. And the Eastern Province Herald, as it was known back then, published on the sports page, it said Kingswood 17, All Blacks 0. Now,
yeah, it's interesting.
so my best guess is, how strong has South African schoolboy rugby been as the feeder system into the Springboks? Has it always been this way?
Well, it has, but I think now, what's nice now is that the net is wider. So,
okay.
So some of the schools that have got the most Springboks are obviously Paul Roos at 56, Gray, Bloem 48, Bishops at 43. But here's the interesting one. The 2023 Rugby World Cup final squad, so the Rugby World Cup final, specifically that match, the 23-man squad came from 21 different schools.
Oh, wow.
Right? Meaning that only one school had more than one player, and Paul Roos ended up with 3. Everybody else was from, one school was represented. What's even more outstanding about that particular squad is that 57% of the players came from schools that were ranked outside the top 40.
Oh, wow.
So for me, this is why I was saying to you that, the strength of South African rugby is through our depth, right? The fact that one of South Africa's most kept player, Eben Etzebeth, comes from Tygerberg, a school ranked 209th, right? He's a Springbok legend, but he comes from a school ranked 209th. So it means that you don't have to go to the Paul Roos, Bishops, and those traditional schools, because if you're good enough, you're gonna make it. And because teams are putting out 15, 20 match day teams on a Saturday, that's where the talent in South Africa resides.
Okay, and then explain this to me quickly. When we were at school, it was mostly always the masters who coached rugby. So you would get coached by your math teacher or your history teacher or something like that. But that's changed, right?
No, completely. Now schools have got a director of rugby, the first team coach, and a lot of the schools is a dedicated rugby coach. So he doesn't have to go and teach geography in the morning. He's basically dedicated to that. A lot of schools are bringing in old Springboks or ex-Springbok players to be their first team coaches or directors of rugby. So it's completely changed. The negative thing about it is that it's brought in things like poaching, where the top schools poach from the smaller schools. But yeah, school rugby in South Africa is very, 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 very strong.
Impressive statistics. Right, Mr. Peter, I think this is our most exciting segment. Last time I did some true or false for you, but then you came up with some cracking facts. So I have a couple of facts here. And it's related to schoolboy rugby. If you had to guess,
I'm also the schoolboy rugby, so hopefully we don't have the same.
Don't overlap. What is the oldest rugby derby in Johannesburg, and between which two schools?
Okay. You come with a different angle, because mine was the oldest derby in South Africa. So I would guess Cares against St. John's.
You got one of those two right. It is Cares, but think a little bit further towards the airport. OR Tambo. What school is on the way if you were driving from your neck of the woods on the way to the airport? You see them on the left.
It can't be St. Benedict's College.
No, it's Jeppe in 1935. And this is actually quite a strange one, because all the other major cities in South Africa have much older derbies, Why do you think it is that this one only started in 1935 and it's the oldest one in South Africa? Did they play football before? Or?
No. It's not the oldest one in South Africa.
No, oldest one in Johannesburg. Sorry.
Yeah, oldest one in Johannesburg. So just for people who may want to know, the oldest one is Sachs versus Bishops, right?
Yes.
From 1873.
Correct.
And do you know the second oldest that's still currently running?
Ooh, I saw.
I'll give you a clue.
Queensdale, 1891. Is that
No,
close?
it's from our
St Andrews Graham. It must be St Andrews Graham.
St Andrews Graham, 1878, and then Queensdale, 1891.
91.
So I think if you look at it, it obviously goes with the migration in South Africa, right? So I was looking at another statistic here. The oldest rugby playing school in South Africa. Do you know where that is?
Sure.
We played against them.
Really? Rugby playing? Don't know. Give up. Queens.
No, Muir College. Founded in 1822. Look, they're not even in the top 150, but they are still playing rugby, right? And then in the top 10, you've got a lot of Western Cape schools, right? So Sachs, 1829, Wynberg, 1841, etc. So I can understand. So now to go back to your question about why JP and Kes, their derby is so new, or young,
Indeed.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, the Joburg as a city was only founded around what was it, 1886?
1880s, yeah, in the
1880s. And I'm guessing something like a football would have probably been soccer would have been the main code that those schools would have played against each other back then.
Wow. Okay. Brilliant. Give me yours. What do you got?
That was yours. That one. I had about the oldest derby and about the schools.
Then I've got another one for you. Mithali Raj, the legendary Indian cricket player for the women's team, has got the most Cricket World Cup scores of 50 and over at 13. There is a current player which has 12 scores over 50 in all Cricket World Cup games, Women Cricket World Cup games. Who is she? Because she's currently playing.
I'm gonna say it's a teammate, Smriti Mandana.
You're going to be absolutely shocked. It's Laura Wolfhard. She has 12 scores over 50, but doesn't have 100. So she sits on quite an elite list with some great players. And remembering she's only, 26 years old? So she's got a long career, and she should probably break that. And she's got a chance, and maybe two, to break her duck on 100 in Cricket Women's World Cups. Do you have anything else for me?
Okay, so to go back to school rugby, what do you think is the biggest rugby derby, schoolboy rugby derby in the world?
Supposedly it's Paul Boys, so Boys High against Paul Jim. I think they attract 25,000. Is that right?
Yes, wow. 100%. So the second biggest, strangely enough, again involves a school we went to, is K-Day. St. Andrews versus St. Andrews College versus Kingswood College, and then your Kes versus JP, Michael House versus Hilton come in there. And I guess a lot of that also just comes down to capacity of the schools, because Kes and JP being in Joburg, you would assume that they would draw bigger crowds.
Exactly.
But obviously it comes down to capacity.
Brilliant. And here is where our episode ends. I will see you again Thursday, and we will talk about the Cricket Women's World Cup, because the other semi-final will be taking place.
And we will be in the final by then.
We will be looking for who we're playing. Hopefully India.
Exactly.
Until Thursday, see you there, Mr. Peter.
All right, Sash. Lovely chatting. Cheers.